The book you said you'd never write.
Oh, no.
Explain.
God, I know.
Discuss.
What an awful snake in the grass I am. I wrote the first book, Cold Black Mornings, very much sort of because I didn't want to write a rock autobiography, you know, and I said I'd never write a rock autobiography. And then I really enjoyed writing Cold Black Mornings, and really enjoyed the process of it and kind of what it did for me personally, and, you know, just that whole kind of thing, that how a book helps you sort your life out kind of thing. And so I thought I'd write some more. I couldn't not pick at the scab. So I decided to write the book I said I wouldn't write, and there it is, sat on your desk there.
Is that because the scab had started to itch a bit too much?
Yeah, you know, I just really enjoyed it. No, but I tried to kind of come at it from a different angle. You know, what I didn't want to do with this book was write the conventional sort of sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing that most of these books are. You know, I wanted to. It's much more a book about kind of looking at myself almost as a specimen, as someone that's been through the machinery of fame and success, and what that did to me as a person, and how, and you know, trying to work out how that machinery actually works, because it's you know, when you're in the middle of it, you're not aware of it, and it's kind of not really talked about by people that are actually in it. It's talked about by observers who are outside it more often. So I wanted to kind of get into it. And
you can observe it as much as you like, but you'll never know what it's like to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can very accurately observe it, and, you know, and very entertainingly and informatively observe it, but it's not the same as being there. And I've always found that interesting with PR consultants and advisors who advise people who are about to be thrust into the public eye, or really have been maybe, on how to act, having never done it themselves. It's quite incredible.
Exactly. It's a bit crazy, isn't it? Yeah,
but we still need them. And you talk about that in your book. So I think there are three. There's loads of arcs, there's narrative arcs, but the three would be the songs, your relationship with Bernard, and your relationship with the press. I think that's sort of how I saw it when I read the book. Yeah, but it's brilliant. First of all, a few. Did they really? Did Morrissey really stand at the back of one of your gigs making notes on stagecraft because he thought he was losing it and you were the new kid in town? Did that really happen?
Nice stories. I was actually on stage, so I don't know. You can't, when you're on stage, you can't really see that far. That's what someone told me. So it's just, you know, unreliable.
You
witness.
Wouldn't really make it up though. If you're going to make something up, you don't make that up. You make like the Queen came in because you took the wrong turn in at the theatre or something. Morrissey stood at the back. He was a fan, you know that.
Well, sort of.
We know that. We know he was a fan. Yeah. He was stood at the back. He sneaked into one of your gigs, and the Smiths, a massive inspiration of yours, and everybody's, of course. But you do get to a certain point. This happened to me once. I was in a bar, and somebody extraordinarily famous, who's famous to this day, and extraordinarily funny, got more funny in their little finger than I've got in my whole being, spent an hour saying, you know, what should I do? Where's it gone wrong? I said, mate, you are blah, blah. Don't worry about it. It's going to come right again. Yes. And I can imagine Morrissey doing this. I can imagine becoming...
he did. But as Mark Twain once so brilliantly said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
No, not at all.
You know, so let's just assume he did, right? Whether he did or not. He did now, right?
Yeah, of course he did. Ricky Gervais, without Ricky Gervais, you wouldn't have been Suede. Is that true?
I'm not sure about that. Ricky,
never let the truth.
Yeah. No, let's go into that one. It's sort of got out of proportion. Ricky was part of a management team that managed us in the very, very early days.
With Justine.
When Justine was in the band, yeah. So there's three managers, and Ricky was one of them, sort of thing. And
okay. How did Ricky Gervais become your manager? Because he was into music much more than anything else, then, wasn't he?
He was just sort of part of an events kind of like team at University College London, sort of thing. And he had this. We actually supported his band. He had this band called Son of Bleeper, which is possibly one of the worst names for a band ever.
Or best.
Yeah, I mean, there was about 5 people at the gig, so there's no photographic evidence of him in Son of Bleeper.
What was he like as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old?
He was, you know, he was very funny, actually. I mean, Simon, our drummer, kind of actually worked with him in the Yulu ticket office, so he's got much more kind of like war stories about him, sort of thing. I didn't have that much to do with Ricky in those days, sort of thing, but whenever I met him, he was always very funny. He was a bit of a David Bowie impersonator on stage.
But you all were, in a way, weren't you? So you're Bowie, your inspiration, Bowie, Brian Ferry, the Smiths. Who else would be in
Sex Pistols were my favourite band growing up, yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Did you ever get to see them?
I didn't know. I was too young.
Okay.
I was only 10 in 1976.
It didn't stop some people.
I should have been there.
You should have tried harder,
I should have been there at the 100 Club when I was 10 years old.
Exactly.
Double history the next day, but no.
But you did go on to play the 100 Club, which is fair enough, I suppose. Better late.
Not quite the same as being there. Yeah.
So much to talk about. I mean, we can go chronologically, we can go any way you like. Let's just reference the Smiths again. The more and more people bringing out books like this of an age now, who are of an age, and the story's there to be told. And like you say, second time around, the bitterness is gone. The love is back. You fall back in love with what you did, and you have a much better appreciation for yourself at the time.
Yeah.
And for the business at the time. But so many bands and so many artists cite the Smiths. They seem to be the benchmark for bands evolving around the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, I think they were. I think they're one of those odd bands that their legend has kind of like grown since they've split up, kind of thing. In a funny sort of way, I remember when I was into them when I was a young man, it felt like a very big cult. It felt like quite a sort of elitist little club sort of thing. It wasn't a mainstream, and their whole kind of presence has spread much further out into the media. I think lots of the reason is because lots of the people that were into them ended up being the kind of people that sort of like became instrumental in the media later on, sort of thing. So they appealed to those kind of people.
But they had that other thing, didn't they, the Smiths, about being what seemed to be elite, and I know what you mean by that. Yet a lot of people liked them, but we all just wanted to think that we were a bit special, and that not as many people liked them as actually did.
They were like a huge cult. But then again, if you look at the kind of, I always look at the venues bands play as a kind of sort of a marker of how big they are. And, they just played, their last gig was at the Brixton Academy, do you know what I mean? It wasn't like they were playing kind of Wembley Stadium or anything like that. So that's a kind of marker that they weren't like an enormous band. Like I say, the legend has grown.
Okay, all right. More with Brett Anderson when we return. Let's have a bit of Smith, shall we? And how soon is now Brett's brand new book, Afternoons with the Blinds Drawn. The rockography.
Yes.
There you go. This makes it even sound worse, doesn't it?
Yes.
The rockography.
The rockography.
He said he'd never write.
Yeah.
He has written it, and thank God, because it's brilliant. All right. In the book, you do allude to, and I'm sort of, I don't know, I'm being over diplomatic here, but it's called Afternoons with the Blinds Drawn, and you talk about your various addictions. You don't talk about them specifically, which is really interesting. Okay. And by the way, I'm not going to challenge you on that at all. Yeah. I find that really interesting, but I think I know why you've done it. But you talk about the band's, fall from grace, your challenges, your struggles, spending far too many afternoons going into evenings on various substances, doing various things with various people, but you don't say what those various things are.
Yeah.
And I like that because in a way, well, we know what that was. Okay,
yeah.
So you read the book, we know what that was, and I've read some reviews of your book, and they're saying he doesn't say what, he doesn't say why, he doesn't say who with, he doesn't say for how long. Well, those people should get out more, I think, because if you can't fill in those kind of gaps...
Work it out. I mean, I didn't use... There's a few proper nouns I didn't use in the book for very specific reasons, because I think as soon as you do that, it's going to be sensationalised. The way the media works.
Exactly.
The way the media works is that these things get taken out of context, and as soon as you use a name of something or of someone, it's plucked out, taken out of context, kind of like magnified, turned into a story that it isn't. And as soon as it's bereft of context, then it's sort of like it's kind of bereft of a certain sort of meaning. It's got a life of its own. And I didn't want to sensationalise these things. I wanted to talk about them in broader concepts, the broader concept of addiction and substance abuse and stuff like that. Who cares exactly what I was taking? That's just sort of like, that's just tittle tattle.
That's exactly,
the point is that is the journey that I went through with these things and what it did to me and why I did them. That was what I was trying to get into.
Yeah, if you want to know the ins and outs, watch Trainspotting, and then just parachute any scene at Trainspotting into any of these kind of stories, because that's what you're dealing with there. And that's why I really liked it. And it was really clean. I thought, my goodness me, there could be 3 or 4 chapters in that one sentence. But you went, no, we're just going to leave that where it was. And I really liked it for that, because it didn't contaminate the whole story of your amazing band.
Thank you, yeah.
Which I suppose is... But to come up with that thought, nobody's ever done that before.
Well, yeah, I wanted to do it in a different way. Like I said at the start of the interview, I wanted to come at it from a different way. And I think there's that whole sort of like temptation when you write in a rock autobiography, is to sort of like, have these anecdotes about these awful moments taking certain drugs, and it all turns into this
with
sort
Neil
of
and IS.
Yeah, this kind of, Keith Richards sort of like Motley Crue sort of thing about, look at me doing all these drugs. I didn't want it to be like that. I didn't want it to be a kind of like a series of sort of, sort of little vignettes about these things. I wanted to talk about what these things had done to me and my journey through them. You know,
might it also be right playing devil's advocate here? And that's all I'm doing, promise you.
Yeah.
Because it is a cliche, and you did fall into it, and you're a bit disappointed with yourself.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I mean, it's there's a massive sense of sort of like regret there. There's definitely a tone to the book, a sort of self-deprecating tone. Absolutely, yeah.
And did you ever think when you started you might fall prey to that?
Well, I don't think anyone does. I think the kind of like a band's history is ridiculously preordained. So you have every band has the same story basically. So every band it's a story of struggle, followed by success, followed by excess, followed by disintegration. Right? It's those
and
four
maybe
things.
salvation and redemption.
And maybe right at the end, if you're lucky, you get a period of sort of like acceptance, salvation, without wishing to sort of sound all new age about it. But it's those four things are unavoidable. And it's like every single band goes through the same thing. But it's the same thing with life, isn't it? It's like, you don't kind of like not engage with life because you might kind of like break up with someone and get divorced and get depressed and these sorts of things. You just stumble through life in the same way that you stumble through being in a band. Being in a band is just a sort of like a magnification of life. These traps are unavoidable, unfortunately.
Right, we started with the did you really. We're going to almost finish with the did you really, not quite. Did you really, on the way from the dressing room to the studio set, which is about 50 yards if I know that studio correctly, from the dressing room to the studio floor of the Graham Norton show, within those 50 steps, did you really whisper, let's not do this anymore?
Pretty much, yeah. It was we did a mime of a song, and then we kind of like shuffled backstage, and we just sort of sat there and basically split up in the backstage at the Graham Norton show. So there's something truly depressing about that, isn't there? Yeah, sort of mixture.
And it's not Graham's fault. No reflection on Graham at all.
No. Of course not. It's that sort of
my God! Can you
something that devastating happening within the context of light entertainment. There's something
off the back of a mime.
Yeah.
Oh no.
But there's something absurd about it that sort of somehow sums up the sort of absurdity of kind of being in a band in the first place. So.
It's the opposite of driving off a cliff, isn't it? it's the opposite of a Thelma and Louise ending. It's we could drive off a cliff, but why don't we just write the script that says that and then we'll call it.
It's very prosaic, yeah. But
I really like it.
It's something quite amusing.
I really like it.
But that was sort of another thing that I was trying to bring to the book. I was trying to sort of undermine the whole sort of rock and roll cliche in that, being in a band is very prosaic. There's lots of moments sitting backstage fiddling with bits of cheese, and kind of like in depressing dressing rooms and all of these kind of like, they're not kind of glamorous moments at all, and that was what I was trying to sort of like bring out the reality of those moments.
Well, also, when you're on tour, or you put every down hole, don't you, preparing to give people who've come to see you far and wide and paid good money, 2 hours of the memories to remember for the rest of your life. But you have to put your whole down hold, waiting for them to have that moment that you're not going to have because you had it last night. You're going to have it tomorrow night, and you've had it 1,000 times before.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very aware of that hour and a half on stage is absolutely sacrosanct, and I'll kind of sacrifice everything for that. You make sure that people go away thinking, whoa.
They moved us. You've got to move people, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
That's the most important part.
Yeah.
All right, I have one other question for you. How come, having been through all you've been through, and you weren't fighting wars or saving lives, we know that, but still, you still work your socks off, no doubt about that. How can we look so well?
How come I look so well?
It's really annoying because I didn't do half the things she did, and
right.
I just did lager. I just drank pints and pints of lager.
Do you want to
passed out?
Is this where I go into my workout regime?
No, I just want to know how come you still look that well after all. I know because I know. Forget the small print. I know what you've been through.
Oh, I don't know.
How come?
I think it's very kind of you to say so. I don't know. I just sort of. I kind of. Okay, I don't destroy my body anymore.
What the heck is there a workout regime?
I don't have a workout.
Are you going to bring out a fitness DVD?
do a bit of running, and I love cycling around London.
Right.
London, I always. This morning I actually got a car from my flat to here, but if any other, that's only because I have to turn up not in my. Otherwise, I would have turned up in my high visibility yellow thing,
not looking like Brown.
Normally, exactly, yeah. Normally, I
no
would
good at all,
turn up here in my high vis on my Brompton. Do you know what I mean? So cycling is the best thing. I recommend it for everyone.
Can I just talk about the Brompton?
I love the Brompton.
Right, I've spent the last 4 days ruminating on whether to get a Brompton or not.
Get it.
I've been to the shop, right? Is it not? It's Waterloo Bridge.
There's
I've been to
several
the
shops.
shop.
Yeah.
But the Runners Need and Brompton shop. I went there last Friday, had a proper chat with a bloke, and then I nearly did something that you should never do, and I hate people that do it. I nearly went. I bent his ear for half an hour, and then thought, right, I know what I need to know now. I'll go and buy one on the internet. You can never do that.
No.
Bad karma. That's the worst karma ever, isn't it?
People who go and try on running shoes, and they get on the treadmill, and they have the expert advice from somebody who videos your gait and says,
can't afford the flat in London that he's had to buy.
These are the shoes you need to buy. Thanks very much. Walk straight out of the shoe. No, please.
Yeah, I was nearly that person. I was nearly. What's that about?
God, and did you redeem yourself? Did you buy it in the end?
No. Then I thought about the planet, right? And I thought, okay, maybe this would equalise the karma. I'd go on eBay and buy a used one from somebody who needs the dough, and therefore I'm not getting another one needlessly made for the planet. So I went and had a look at that instead. But I still didn't buy one in the end.
They're great.
No, and now this is karma. This is me saying, okay, I've got to go and get one.
Yeah.
How often do you fold it up, though?
Yeah, that's quite tricky, actually. Yeah,
because that's the point of them, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is like an advert. We can't be doing this.
Yeah, we can.
We're doing an advert.
It doesn't matter. Who cares? I don't mind if you don't mind.
Well, they're great little bikes. They're good city bikes.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you have lights on yours?
Yes.
Dynamo or batteries?
I have little battery lights.
Is it a 2-gear, 3-gear, or 6-gear?
I'm really super safe. 3-gear.
3-gear.
Really super safe.
Is it a gear change, a top shifter, or is it a horizontal shifter?
Horizontal shifter.
That means it's slightly. That means it's built in the last 2 years.
Is this like the top gear for bikes we're doing now?
Top gear.
Do you know what I mean?
Have you got a leather seat?
No, let's mention Tommy.
Have you got a T handlebars or straight handlebars? Or the racing handlebars?
Oh God, straight. I think
straight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this leading somewhere?
Nope, not at all. I think we're done.
Okay.
That's it.
The Chris Evans Breakfast Show with Sky.